Welcome to our Monday night webinar. We're going to talk about buyers tonight. Excited about it. Shannon's going to give us some modern ideas of how to really take our buyer consultation to the next level. I'm learning some new things too. And when I can take a few new things out of another broker in the business, I think this will be a really good one for us to discuss tonight. So I've got Shannon Hall with me tonight. We're going to be talking about the buyer consultation, how we can really take the buyer uh, presentation, consultation, conversion, all of that. We can take it to the next level, make it a more modern presentation. We're not worried about the contract. I think that's the biggest takeaway we have tonight is we're not worried about the contract so much. It's just how do we change our verbiage? How do we get more intentional with how we're working with our buyers? And we're going to give you guys some great tips tonight. So I'm excited about what we have to share. If you could just keep your comments to the very end, we've got a different mic system going tonight. So if you could just put it in the chat. If we talk, if you want some of the handouts or some of the things we're talking about, we'll provide those at the very end. Let's go ahead and hit it.
Yeah, so what's just kind of fun about this. These are real live text messages. I've got video that I want to share with you guys today. So hopefully you guys are in a position when I kind of pull it up, you guys can take a peek at it. But this is the real deal. This is not just Shannon talking about stuff in theory. This is stuff that has actually been applied. So even if you've been an agent for a very, very long time, I think Rachelle and I was showing her some of the screenshots. I was like, it works. The stuff works. Just changing the terminology, the application, the timing of some of this stuff, it works. So certainly for newer agents, maybe you take a couple notes, but these are my hot tips when working with buyers in this kind of modern marketplace where we've been so used to a fast and furious marketplace for the last few years. And we're now in a position where we can negotiate. So, in that kind of environment, I think as a buyer's agent, we need to position ourselves as more of a negotiator, as an expert, things like that, rather than I just find you homes. So, we'll get into that here in a second.
Let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about this because this is near and dear to my heart. I have always taught and trained buyer consultation since the day I got my manager's license. I've taught agents how to have successful conversations with buyers. And so I used to basically teach you guys how to do a consultation and build your own script. And then I started listening to buyer's agent after buyer's agent actually trying to have these conversations with buyers. And I thought, why don't I just give you guys the top 10 things to make sure you're asking? So a lot of people ask me, well, what do you say on the phone, Rachelle? When you talk to a buyer for the very first time, it doesn't matter if it's a lead or if it's a family member. These are my 10 questions that I ask. I put it onto a nice intake sheet for all of you. And this is downloadable on bestchoicerealtyhomes.com. Another reason to go and log in and grab this. And if you want to, you can make it your own. But I go down the list. You have 10 questions. One of my favorite questions on this list is what's prompting you to start looking now? That was one of my favorite ones. Is question number 5. And it really kind of sets the stage for like, how long is this buyer going to be in my world? Sometimes they go really, really long. They take a long time. I've had a buyer I've been working with now, Shannon, for a year and a half. I'm not going to lie. I've had a year and a half buyer. Some of you might have kind of picked up a buyer who's been on hold and now they're starting to see the opportunity or the window opening for them. This is the time to get them out there. This is the time to actually have those conversations. People ask me, when is the best time to buy? When you're ready.
Or more likely 10 years ago, right? So if it's not 10 years ago, then the best time is certainly now. I just kind of to keep it real and current, I just used this last week. I had a client that reached out to me. They fell off about 2 or 3 years ago for various circumstances. They reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you have time this week? We would love to, connect, and we're kind of ready to start looking again." Before I made the phone call to them, I printed this off and I went through this just like I would any other buyer, even though I've already done this with them several years ago, because things have changed, their circumstance have changed. Uh, for them, when I asked them the question, what's prompting you to start looking now? Their answer to me was, we've been paying down debt and my wife got a job. So we now have a dual income household. and two of my kids have left the house. So we don't have two kids that are in school anymore. That's really what's prompting us to make a change. Now I know, okay, well, that means that, certainly their pre-approval needs to be updated, even though it's been a couple years. It gives me more to kind of work with on where I can go with them in terms of the consultation.
So sure, you're going to have probably have more questions than 10 when you're really working with the buyer, but this will get you started. This will get you at least when you're having a phone conversation, you've got some sort of scripted questionnaire that you can use. And then when you meet them, if you didn't ask all 10 questions, then you have some more questions you can ask.
Yeah.
And I love the sheet. So download it if you can and start using it right away and see what kind of change that makes in your business.
This is nice too for you if you're keeping track of your clients. I'd say not a lot of people are working more than a couple clients at a time, but it's nice to kind of take a peek at and have consistency where the format is the same for every client that you're working with. You know what their bedroom is, you know what's important to them. Even if it's scribbled in the corner, you can kind of keep track of them that way.
That's good. Let's do the next slide.
So for a two-step approach, I'd say this
Look, you might want to back it up, Shannon. What is a two-step approach?
Yeah.
I mean, so we have some new agents here on
there's those ideal perfect clients where they go, I want to go look at homes right now. I already know I want to work with you. Sign. Let's go take a look. Let's go show homes right now. I'd say that is a lovely one-step approach. We want our buyers to be like that. But I think right now, when we're in a much more consultative environment where there is a lot of things that have changed, there's a lot more negotiation, there's a lot more contingencies than there's been in the past. There's more two steps that are having to occur. So this is a good situation you can see on the screen here where I have a client. They are first-time home buyers. And I would say the two-step approach, the reason we're getting this is by virtue of the marketplace.
Yes.
But also because when you've got first-time home buyers that are having to be nudged over that fence just to go in and start showing, they're so nervous, they're requiring that two-step kind of validation in a way to get them over the finish line. So this is from my cute little clients. They actually reached out to me again. It's like they're doing a good job following up with me more than I am with them in some respects, right? Hey, when can we meet with you this week to talk? And I respond, I said, I already know because I've
shameless plug, Shannon. You should probably take a little screenshot.
Yeah,
You're like, I don't know what to say when a client wants to go meet with me or wants to talk. Shannon does a great job with her text message. I'm probably not as wordy as you are, but she kind of covers her bases, as you can see.
I'll give them two options, either Wednesday. So if I was scheduling an appointment right now for a client that reached out to me, I would say, hey, I have time Wednesday afternoon at 2 or Thursday at 9 a.m. What would work better for you? Giving them two options. It sets you up as, I am busy. I do work in real estate. But then it also sets aside the time where they understand it is devoted for them. So this is kind of what I would do to kind of position up, set the appointment, right? Tee this up for yourself. So that way you can go into the next phase. And what is that? That is the consultation. This is what we live and breathe, right?
And I've taught consultation for many years, Shannon. This is what I'm going on. We're with Best Choice. This is my 14th year of training this. I look at the sequence of all of the different trainings we've done on Monday nights. This is one that we've always consulted with or trained agents on how to have a proper review at a consultation. Shannon's got this beautiful she's got modernized my little presentation too. My goodness, she's got it flipping and doing its thing. So I have it right here. I always take something tangible. You always want to be able to give them something. I learned this from some of our Korean agents. Some of you actually do an excellent job of meeting with people. You always bring something.
Yeah.
And that
goes empty-handed.
Never.
Always bring something.
So always have something you can take with it. So a pre-filled buyer service agreement, always have that with you. The disclosures that you're required. Every state has their disclosures. It doesn't matter if you're working in Utah, Idaho, Oregon, Washington. It doesn't matter. They all have their unique disclosures. Get yourself some printed packages. We actually have those in our offices that you can come and you can purchase. They're already printed nicely for you. If you want to print them on your computer, you can, but it's going to eat your ink.
Yep.
And then the buyer guide, that would be the buyer guide. Some of you have actually made your own buyer guides, but if you don't have your own, use ours that is purposely done and branded in such a way where it shows that the company supports you and you could write your notes and have those types of things. And the home warranty information, I don't think they're actually changing the home warranty information in Washington. So more to come on that. They're changing the way on the forms in Washington how the home warranty is done. And then don't forget your business card. You got to look good. So if
Yeah.
you want to brand it, at least have your business card on hand. Those are the 5 things that I
Yeah, it's
include.
either these are kind of for me, these are my non-negotiables. When I go to a consultation with a buyer, this is what I'm coming non-negotiable. I have to have these in
Bare
my car.
minimum, right?
So, even though the guide, so you can kind of see they've got like a last page, I don't fill that in. I think that's part of the conversation that I have with them where I leave it with them. I
You're
take
talking about this
notes.
bottom right
Yep,
here.
I take notes and then at the very end, I'll take a picture for myself, but I leave them with the tangible product. And I walk through. So, it's kind of flipping through, you guys can see, but it goes through the steps of what it takes to get your buyer to the point where they get to closing. And you go slow, especially with these analytics and first time home buyers. They want you to go slow and be very detailed. They want to know that you know what you're doing. So this is how you'll posh yourself up so that way you can very easily get to the signature. So obviously at this point, hopefully you get to the signature line, right? But if not, there is a way that you can
How
kind of get there.
how long does that take when you're actually going through the stuff, like the actual tangibles, the giveaways? I mean, I kind of walk me through in a modern presentation. You're going to sit down, maybe at the coffee shop beforehand. Maybe you're going to be doing it at your first house.
Yeah, yeah.
How long is this presentation taking?
So I have my
Heavy
back.
box out here.
I am physically holding the
Yeah.
folder. So I kind of look at it as I'm coming to the appointment. I am physically holding a folder. They know I have stuff for them at that point because they can see it's in my hand. They can see that there's Best Choice Realty on stuff, right? So once I sit down with them, either at the kitchen table, at a house, a Starbucks, the office, wherever, right? I'm setting it down and I don't even open it until I've asked them a series of questions. I'll take notes if it's applicable, for them, but I'm asking them questions that maybe I missed during that initial intake. Or maybe, what's prompting them to start looking now. And I had a buyer where their previous buyer's agent botched the job. And so they had a lot to say about what they're expecting and what they're looking for in their agent. And I just let them talk. Let them
How long does that
talk.
presentation really take, though? When you're sitting down or you're at the counter, I like the kitchen zone, the
More than 30 minutes. I mean, this is not very long. It'll be, if you include the kind of the pregame on all this stuff, it could take the full hour, but it shouldn't take much longer.
not if you've done
On
if you've
my
done the two-step
work call.
approach, right? If you've done the two-step approach and you're using the intake and you're prepping yourself and you show up,
Yep.
it really shouldn't take more than 30 minutes, you're saying.
Nope. So if you're telling the buyer, I only need about 30 minutes of your time, that's truly all you need.
Okay.
Okay. So after the appointment, this is how you win them, right? You win on the follow-up. So I have the pleasure of working with a lot of analytics. And maybe it's because
maybe it's because you've been working with my stuff, Shannon.
That too. Yeah. Yeah. So this is a good example of this client that I just mentioned where I was overcoming a previous buyer's agent. This is exactly what I sent to them. So you guys can take a peek at what it says.
I told you she's good on the almost.
So it's a long text message. This is beefy. I could have sent it over email. At this point in time, I didn't have their email address, so I sent it over text.
Top tip though, you guys, on you're looking at these ideas, she goes with the communication style of the client. So if your client tends to be long-winded texters, you keep it that way. Don't try to change their communication style. If they're the type of people that like to be on the phone, you're on the phone with these people.
Yep.
If you're going to be emailing these people, which tends to be what I do, I don't usually do the long texts, then it's a long email back and forth with these people. So keep the communication in alignment with what they typically do or how they communicate best with you.
And this one's important too, because this client, they are a Duolingo or bilingual family, I guess. Where one of them speaks another language and the only common language they have together is English. So they appreciate having things in writing afterwards. So that way, if one missed something, they can read it and they can read it together. So there's a lot of reasons why it is this length, but this gives you some talking points or maybe some takeaways here. I'll read it for those of you that are driving. Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet in person today. I always start with gratitude, right?
Yep.
I love your honesty regarding your prior experience. It helps me understand how I can better serve you. I'm committed to making sure your family is making a solid investment. As your real estate advisor, I work on your behalf, but you call the shots. You're welcome to call our mutual friend, Kathy, for a review of how we work and negotiate. She and Carlos, so would be a previous close client, mutual friend, shameless plug for a testimonial or some sort of social proof here, right? She and Carlos just closed on an excellent buy and are getting their keys tonight, oddly enough. Below is the link to the app where I have visibility over what homes you've hearted. This would be if you're in Northwest MLS, that would be that Northwest MLS app or HomeSpotter, something like that. So that way you guys can use the appropriate application. I work quickly and I dedicate time on weekends to show properties. I know you are always looking. So if you beat me to seeing something you like, let me know right away so we can get you inside. I'll plan to connect with Darcy, aka the lender, tomorrow AM. Looking forward to working with you.
I like that if you dissect this text message, you guys, what I like about this the most is how she's changed her terminology. I mean, she's using words that I think are much more modern in today's buyer behavior. I mean, they have so much information
Yeah.
at their fingertips, and you've got to position yourselves as the authority, as the person that's got the resources, and that's also very connected to the team. I
Yeah.
like how you kind of on like a first name basis with the
Yeah.
lender. I think that's important that you have the lender on your team and that you're using words. I think the one thing I loved is find you a home, work on your behalf. I love those types of things that where you
Yeah.
really.
Rather than just saying, I'm a realtor, I'm a real estate agent, and it's assumptive that they know what your job is. I think a lot of consumers, you have to, especially real estate consumers, you have to retell them what your job is. What do you do? You do more than just show homes. This is what I'm doing. I'm making sure that your client, your family is making a solid investment. I'm making sure that we work and negotiate on your behalf. These are trigger words for them that they're looking for. So terminology shift. I think this is important just to mention and reiterate. We do more than just find homes. I think right now, especially with AI in the mix now too, the cat's out of the bag. Buyers have more information and data and access to properties than they ever have before. So you are not just finding them a home. In many cases, they're finding the home before you can because they are on it. You're working on their behalf too, and this is where you put your value proposition in there. Is that making sure they make a solid investment? Is that they're educated on the process? Is that making sure you negotiate the best deal? What
Yeah.
is your value proposition? You're working on their behalf to do XYZ, right? So
It's good stuff.
I'd say change your terminology a little bit on what your value is. Okay, so once that's good and done, right? We're actively showing homes, we're going out and doing stuff. This is something I'd say logistically just solves so many problems.
And I'm just dying here at this point, you guys. This is making me feel really old because
it gives her
because
anxiety.
texting, I'm like, are we seriously
I know.
going here? We are, you
Yeah.
guys. This is definitely the wave of the future. This is the modern
Yeah.
buyer's agent. They're doing the group texting.
Yes.
So give us some of the top tips that you came
Yeah,
up with,
yeah.
Shannon.
So we're not doing like single messages. I think just like quick etiquette. Like you're not sending just quick sentences and ha ha ha. We're not doing stuff like that. Use it intentionally. If you've been in the industry a long time, in some cases you're using it kind of the way you used to with email, just to keep quick updates. 2-3 sentences kind of thing. So who's included on some sort of group text? For me, I look at it as keeping the parties and the decision makers on the same page. So oftentimes you've got a husband and a wife, or you've got a mom and a son that are buying together. You've got several different people. They have different jobs, different schedules, but you want to keep them on the same thread, right? So this is the purpose of that. In my case, I have an assistant, so I want to make sure she's in the loop too. So rather than them texting my assistant and then texting me, and we've got all these different texts that are in the mix, we're just going to keep all of that communication in one thread.
We started seeing this with the transaction coordinators, didn't we? Just like what, 5 years ago?
Yep.
And now it's become almost more commonplace where we don't need a separate text message thread for the transaction coordinators. No. Might as well put them all in the same thread.
Yeah. It just keeps it streamlined. And I would say for me personally, the way that I would say this is kind of a pro tip, when you have a lot of people that you're working with, like I had one the other day where I was like, where is it? Where is that group text that I had? And I'm scrolling to oblivion, right? So pin the thread. If you have an iPhone, I know it makes it really easy. That's what I have. So I'm not sure how it works on Android, but pin the group text so it pops up in your favorites. It'll make it a lot easier for you to try and find it. And visually, it is a reminder for you to touch base with them regularly. Because if you look on there and you go, oh, I keep seeing their names, I need to make sure I send a follow up to that seller, or I need to keep sending a follow up to that buyer, you won't forget them.
Great idea.
Okay, let's keep going. So even though it's like you had one that just fell off, you had a buyer that fell off, and you're like, gosh, dang it, I don't know what to say. Now it's awkward. It's been 2 months. How do I get them re-engaged? So this is another sample. I would say, while we may not be the ones identifying the properties most of the time, it can be a useful tool for you to reach out to them with properties as you're thinking of them. So in your MLS, make sure you've got a hot sheet set up for them. For me, I've got save searches for each of the clients that I've met with, talked to, and I'll look at them periodically. Every day, maybe not, but periodically I'll take a peek at them and say, oh gosh, this property would be perfect for this person. So this is a sample that re-engaged a client. And it says, thinking of you guys, this one just came back on the market. They lost their buyer due to financing. I like the third bay oversized garage for you, but the kitchen's a little older. You're getting a brand new roof and the yard has a garden area. What do you think? I've used a similar iteration of this text to several different buyers over the years, and it always works.
Even the shorter version
Yes.
works because I'm not as long on texting as Shannon.
I've used another kind of iteration where I said, would you guys ever consider buying in this area? And I send a link to the property. That one's worked. I mean, some sort of reason to get them back on the hunt. I sent one to a friend of mine where she lived in an apartment she never thought she would buy. And I couldn't help myself. Every time I drove by something in my little neighborhood, I'm like, hey, do you want to be my neighbor? Hey, do you want to do this? Have you ever considered doing that? And she couldn't help herself. At one point, she dug in, and that's when we actually started looking for homes. So even though you think they might be dead, this is your reason to reach out. This is one of the easiest things to kind of icebreaker a conversation with someone that maybe you thought had fallen.
I think the key things on this text message, if you're dissecting this text that Shannon's created for you guys, and she's using, this is Shannon GPT. I'm just saying. It is that the very much that there's a call to action. Notice that call to action. The call to action is, what do you think? It's engaging. So if somebody is ghosting you, like not responding to your text, or maybe you've just sent them the link, you got to have a little more than just the link of the listing.
Yep.
Most of the time people want, I'm especially thinking of you guys. I mean, that goes a long way. That's personalizing the approach too. So you got personal touch, one-to-one marketing, and then a call to action at the end. So if you're to dissect this, those are the key things that I noticed on her text message that work. And then all of a sudden you see the response. Yeah, we are looking for a bigger home. This is great.
Understood. Now I know what to revise and what I'm starting to look for, right?
So sometimes you use some properties as bait, right? Is that what we do?
It's a bait to get the fish to bite. Yes, it is. Okay, so introducing the buyer contract. If you were not able to get that buyer to sign initially during that first conversation or during that first appointment, and maybe it's come later, right? This is a sample of this, actually the same client. You can see that they're on here as well. And I had to send them the contract digitally, right? They're not in front of them at this point. How did I introduce this? And I get agents that ask me this all the time too. When do I do this? How do I position it? What do I say?
They always say, what do I
What do I say? So this is a sample of exactly what I said, right? And part of this, and I picked this tip up from an attorney, actually. When I engaged with an attorney, and the terminology would be I engaged with an attorney, they sent me over what they called an engagement package. And in my mind, I want to be no different than an attorney. I want someone to engage with me as well, rather than just signing a service agreement or a contract, which seems
a little bit cold.
It seems very cold.
Yeah.
It has a very visceral reaction when I see contract rather than engagement package. So maybe change the terminology a little bit, and rather than saying buyer service contract or BBSA or things like that I've seen some people send over, change it to be your buyer engagement package. This is what I sent to the client.
Can you read that one too? I think that for some people that are driving, that would be good.
I'll read it. So they had sent it to me, said, hey, we want to take a look at that other one in Edgewood as well.
They always want to go see houses.
See one more, right? So I said, absolutely. I tacked it onto our tour schedule for tomorrow. You can't beat that location. I said, I'm emailing you both an engagement package I will need signed before our first showing tomorrow. So I am compliant with the state law and I'm authorized to work on your behalf.
Love that line.
You're not new to this. So these are ones that I had to re-engage after a first buyer's agent that failed to get the job done. It's only for 30 days. So if you only want to work for 30 days or 6 months or whatever, this is where you could put that in there. And I negotiate my professional fee to be paid for by the seller. If you have questions while reviewing, call me. See you tomorrow.
Nailed
Yeah,
it.
it's not difficult.
It came in, you guys, electronic. I saw
Oh,
it.
I know.
Shannon's like,
So
they signed.
Oh, it did. So this is what I accompanied this text with. So I'm not just going to leave you with a text message and say, this is what you need to do. This is what I sent them. So posh up what you're sending
Get prepared
to them.
here. Look at this.
Yeah. So they're getting who I am, maybe a testimonial, my contact information. They get a copy of the contract. And then they'll also have a copy of their tour schedule. As you kind of keep going, I'm going to scroll along here so you can see. And then there's also all the disclosures. So if I missed it the first time around, they're all here.
And if you guys are sitting there going, oh, dang, you should be saying, oh, dang. You got to get yourself up. You got to posh yourself up and let's get you into the modern level of working with buyers. The buyers are out there. They're working with people who are prepared, who are very confident, and people who are they listen and they're patient.
Yeah.
And they have resources. I mean, those are all some of the key words that I'm hearing. Why did I go with your agent over another agent? Why did I go with this top producer over somebody else from another company? It's because they had some sort of process, I would say, right?
Yep.
And Shannon has got a beautiful process here that you guys shamelessly steal it.
I know.
Bring it on.
Yeah. I think one of my key, when I sent this over to Rachelle, because I tested it and I was like, let's see if they'll bite, right? And they bit right away, obviously, to sign it. And I go, you know what? What did I do well on this that all of you guys can, I guess, repurpose, right? And I think one of the key things here is not just sending them the contract, send them some other stuff. They want to see
a little cover letter.
Yes.
There's nothing wrong with having a little about you page.
Super colorful. You could just list out some testimonials or have your bio or something, right? But having something about you and your services and maybe a testimonial or a link to your Google reviews. I mean, something other than just sending them a very black and white contract that's not very fun to look at and just looks really cold, right? Yep. So they want to see something a little bit more colorful on the page. So here's my next kind of like part 2 to that, right? I mentioned, you saw it on the thread before where it talks about your tour schedule. Mm-hmm. I look at buyers as I am their cruise director for the weekend. And so what am I going to, I'm going to set up their little, their tour schedule, just like you have for a travel agent or for a cruise director, right? So this is what I sent to them. I said, here's our showing schedule for the day. And I listed out the properties so that way they have them and they can GPS and click on them to get to the next home. But the key on here is make their life easy. This is why they're going to continue to work with you. This is why they will refer you their friends, is because you make it easy for them. An extra kind of tip, and I would say this works regardless on the price point. I've used this for entry-level buyers or $1 million buyers. It does not matter. They want the inside scoop. So rather than just, showing up at the house and, just printing out the listing sheet and walking into the house with little to no knowledge other than what's already on the market that the buyers have already seen, they want you to give them the inside scoop.
I usually call it the secret agent notes,
yep.
But I won't give them the secret agent notes unless they've signed. This follow-up on tour day doesn't even start.
In fact, I don't see the inside
until they sign.
Until they sign and they show up for their first meeting. So what I typically will do is I will print out. So once I kind of have identified the properties, you figure out, the logistically the best way to show, which you can do very easily through the showing services that our MLSs have. But on this one, I printed out the MLS sheets for each of the properties and I just smiled and dialed all of the listing agents, asking them, hey, I'm got a scheduled showing to view your property tomorrow. I've already taken a peek at it. Is there anything that you can share with me that you have not already put in the listing?
They always have something to say too.
They always do. They always do, because there's only so much you can put in a listing. We have they don't necessarily want the public knowing why the seller wants to sell. They've got all these different little things when you're showing the key is here and make sure you show them the shop and don't forget to point out this. That's why you call the listing agent ahead of time. Come prepared with the inside scoop. And that way it makes your life easier when the buyer comes in and they say, hey, what's the story on this property? You already know.
What do you think is the question you always ask the sellers, the listing agents? I guess you never call the sellers directly. Let me correct myself there.
I want the inside scoop. I say, is there anything that you can share with me about your listing
That you have not,
that you have not already shared on the listing? Or is there anything you want me to point out to my buyers
when I
while
show
I am
it.
there?
Okay, I love
Yeah.
that one.
So that
Good.
way if they told me that it's approved for a second lot, or that it already has, the electrical. I had one where they had it already electrical in the detached shop, and they're like, it's ready for an ADU. And I was like, oh, wow. Well, I'll definitely point that out to them. That's good to know. I'm just taking notes. And then that way, when I show the property, I can pull up my notes and say, this is the story on this one. This is the scoop on this one. The sellers are moving out of state because of XYZ, or they needed more space, or whatever. I can share with them what the scoop is on the.
So the reality, though, Shannon, out of 4 people, if I called these 4 listing agents, how many do you think I'd actually get a hold of on the phone?
I've had very good success. I'd say it's like 85% of the time I will actually get a hold of the agents. And the ones that I've had some where they don't want to share too much, or maybe there was a language barrier or whatnot. They didn't share too much. But if that's the case, I just make a note that wasn't able to get too much out of them. I did get a hold of the listing agent.
And then you're sharing a
And
little bit more of the agent
yep,
only remarks, maybe
yep,
that are in the MLS.
exactly. But it does also help you as a buyer's agent if you've had a conversation as a listing agent, which I've listed many homes over the years. How many buyer's agents actually call you? Not very many.
No.
So when I end up getting an offer from someone and I already know, I've already told them the scoop, they already know.
Yeah.
And I've already asked them, what their buyer's motivations are. I've had that conversation. It makes it so much easier to start negotiating and working together to try and find some common ground when you get to the negotiation table.
It's great.
Okay, so this is my last little hot tip for me.
This last slide too, I think.
Yeah, this is the last one. So if you weren't able to get them before, how do you get them to the finish line? And this is where you are more than just a finding homes agent. This is where you go from I'm an agent that just shows homes and opens doors to I'm a real estate agent that is going to be a lifetime real estate agent. They will refer me clients for forever.
This is how you get from better to best.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. This is like leveling it up.
This would be after you've shown the homes, and Rachelle taught me this early on. When you're showing the homes and you just have that feeling, you're like, the buyers liked it. They're going to write an offer on this one. They love this one. It doesn't even have to be the one that they end up writing on. It's the one that they like the most from that day. Call the listing agent and say, hey, they really liked it. Do you have any other offers? What can you tell me? So if you haven't already made a conversation with them from the get-go, this is your second opportunity to do so. But then afterwards, this is where you can send your buyer. You are their hunter. They want you to gather information for them. It's so hard as a consumer to know where the permits are. Where's the septic as built? Where's the neighborhood statistics? What are the crime statistics for this area? It's so much harder for them to hunt it down because they are not in our industry. They don't have the same tools that we do. Make their lives easier. So
this is kind of, I think you're taking a page out of my UW professor.
Yeah, there you go.
He was an analytic, and I helped him purchase a home and sell his home. And I started to look at his home office of all of the things that he's saving. I'm like, I can provide you with all of that in like 5 minutes. He's like, well, then do it, you know? And so Shannon, it forever changed the way I train this aspect of the buyer process. So love it. I mean, a lot of the stuff can be attached. Sometimes you actually have to go hunt it down. I hate to say it, Shannon, but some listing agents are very lazy right now.
They really
so you
are.
may actually have to do some of their job for them and actually look up some of this information.
So this particular one, they didn't have the septic. It actually was kind of funny. The listing on this email that I sent out, they indicated the house was on sewer, and I live in the town where it is. And I go, there's no way this house is on sewer. And so I looked it up, and sure enough, it's got septic as built. It's a house built in the 70s. It's on septic still. So I was able to confirm that for the buyers. I relayed that information to them. I gave them a copy of the title, the seller disclosures, the FERPTA neighborhood profile, which you can get from Realist if you're in CoreLogic.
Title reports too.
Yeah.
I mean, if the seller has not provided a preliminary title report, you can call your title rep. And if it's residential, they can usually get it fairly quickly in Washington. Idaho, it takes longer. And there's a cost for that, but in Washington, you can get that right away.
Yeah.
So it does not take that long to get that process started.
In terms, I have some buyer's agents too that will ask, when do I do a buyer CMA? Do I not do a buyer CMA? When do I do that? That sort of thing. I'm a firm advocate. You saw from my earlier text messages, I want to make sure they're making a sound investment as their real estate advisor, right? So as their buyer's agent, I want to make sure that the property, they are not overpaying from what I can see. So I'll do a buyer CMA. You can see here in the email that I sent to them, it says, when I prepare offers for my clients, I also do a quick buyer CMA that can review together to ensure you are both comfortable with the pricing and terms you want to propose to the seller. I'm your advisor on this, but ultimately you are the boss. So I don't do it for every single one that they take a peek at. I don't think that's best use of time. But for the ones that they actually do want to write an offer on, that they're seriously considering, that they need to sleep on, those types of things, I will do a quick CMA for them.
Awesome. Shannon, that was incredible. I took a lot of great ideas out of that. Hopefully you guys did too. Let's just open it up. If there's any quick questions, we'll go ahead and open up the line. We might have a little background noise, but go ahead and if you could put it in the chat, that would be great. Candace, if there was anything I missed or Shannon missed, be sure to open up your mic and let us know.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I noticed that when you were showing the pictures of the listings of the different properties that they could review, did you not delete the other agents' phone numbers?
Yes. So that one, be careful when you're listing the properties. For me, I look at it as the listing agent. It's public record, but there's certain views in the MLS when you print them. One is like the client multi-line. One is the agent 360. Just make sure you select the one that is the client multi-line, because that's the one that's really intended for consumers. Yep.
Great, great call out, Patty. That's awesome. Other questions or comments? You guys motivated to do a little bit more with your buyers? They're waiting for you.
They're ready. They are so ready.
Even if you apply one thing to what Shannon taught you tonight, you guys are going to be well prepared for what's to come. There will be more buyers. I assure you of that.
Yeah.
Rachelle, I just wanted to comment that I get a lot of buyers, and one thing that I often get a feedback with is one of the points that Shannon made is they are very grateful when you show up with something for them. They're like,
yes.
"Oh, have this for me," and the fact that you took the time, and they're like, "You're so professional," and it's all that branding and all about that communication, that professionalism tone that you're setting from the
very beginning, right, Abby? Yeah.
It makes me cry when I go on an appointment and they say, I interviewed another agent and they brought nothing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sad for them.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you for echoing.
Okay.
Thanks for being kind too, Guy. We're changing out our new setup, so I'm glad you guys like it.
If I can say something also.
Sure, go for it.
I have done lots of listing over the years, and indeed, very, very, very few buyer agents ever talk to me. And sometimes I even receive offer in my email, and nobody even let me know an offer was being sent. It's crazy. So
it is crazy.
All the buyer agent out there, please talk to listing agent. We love to talk to buyer agents.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's not enough phone communication. I think a lot of agents got into the industry during 2020 and they were not well trained. They rely a lot on text messages, which is useful, but you can't beat that phone one-to-one conversation. You get a lot more done.
I mean, just by texting somebody, an agent, and saying, hey, I have some questions about your listing. When can I call you? Would be appropriate.
Yeah. Because
you're engaging with information and market knowledge that you can't really get away from.
Yeah. So I guess your takeaway from this is that if you're a listing agent, you know Shannon's going to be calling you. Hopefully your voicemail's not full. Yep.
All right.
Gina, did you have a question?
Okay.
I think I saw her unmute there. Anything from you, Candace?
No, this was great. I noticed that you were saying make your client's job easier, but by doing all the things that you've done up front, you're actually making your job easier as well, to
That's a
be
great
honest.
point.
Yeah.
Being a great guide and a leader in the process. I think a lot of times we set kind of back and just kind of let our buyers take over and they're like, I want to do this, 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 this. When you set the tone this way, you kind of you're setting a process. And that's amazing. It's
It's
good.
one of the
Looks
it's one of the
really
questions
good.
I ask Candace when somebody is struggling with the buyer and they're like, I've been working with this buyer for 6 months and we've written X amount of offers and we haven't got anything. I ask the question to the buyer's agent, when did you do a buyer consultation? And most of the time, when they have not done a proper buyer consultation, that's why it's taken so long, or when the expectations are out of whack, or when they're struggling to get them a property that meets their needs, is because they have to go back and actually do the work, to prepare. So by doing this and front loading it up front, you're going to have a lot easier, more efficient way of getting things done, and your buyers are going to be a lot happier. That's the number one thing. If you're happy, they're happy. It'll go a lot more smooth.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Totally.
Well, hopefully
Thank you
this
so
was
much.
helpful for all of you. It was good to see you all tonight. Let's pick it up again this next Monday. I know we've got another great training coming up, so hopefully we'll see you on Monday. Don't feel shy. You're all welcome to call us still. So Candace, Shannon, Emily, Virginia, Rochelle, all of us are very approachable, I promise. I took a phone call from an agent earlier today, just trying to talk about the covenant program and how that's going to work for her Pierce County property. Whatever it is, talking
Anything
strategy.
goes. Yeah.
Just trying to get out of a deal. We're here to help.
All right, you guys have a good week.
Thanks, you guys.
Good luck.
We'll see you later.